Welcome to the madness!
Hey, how's it going, folks? The name's Steffi, and welcome back to another episode of Ker Nethalas into the Midnight Throne. Okay, so in the last episode, we started reading the manual, the module, basically an introduction into the game, how it's played, and we did our character creation, which we made our first survivor, a emissary slash tracker called Victor Lineshark. Well, this episode we're going to be starting the tutorial dungeon just to get a proper understanding and a proper experience into what a run of Ker Nethalas would be like. Now, before I start anything, there is one quick amendment I need to do. Apparently, when it comes to the toughness, apparently I did something a little bit different. Apparently I did a different formula. Apparently I did 2d10 plus 6, I think, for the toughness being 25. So I'm going to re-roll that and do 2d10 plus 2d6 plus 10. Apparently the maximum toughness is 22, and because I went 25 I did 2d10. Yeah, so I'm just going to redo that now. So we'll go do 2d6 plus 10. So we've got toughness of 16, which isn't too bad actually, it's pretty nice. So yeah, so we're going to change that. Yeah, so I'm going to change that from 25 to 16. Perfect. There we go, now we're more in line with what we need to do. So just as a reminder of our character, we're level 1, we've got 2 personal goals. We need to defeat 1,000 opponents and deal 200 cold damage to gain some nice little perks. We got 20 in acrobatics, 4 in athletics, 60 in bladed weapons, 0 in bludgeoning, 30 in dodge, 20 endurance, 10 in medicine, 40, 20, 0, 10, 40, 30, 30, 20. So, and also we got Masteries, which is we can heal 4d4 wounds at a cost of 4 ether. And we have Tracker, which is advantage on scavenger perception checks, and edible fungi, which is a successful scavenger check. We get +1 in cooking ingredients, which would be pretty nice. Right, so now that's out the way, let's go and read the Explore Ker Nethalas. Actually, do we want to go into... Yes, we want to go into, Do you know what? It's probably best if we do go over the rules. Actually, now I think about it, I wanted to start playing, but it's just a little bit better if we actually go over the rules quickly. So, okay, so the core mechanics behind all actions in Ker Nethalas is called a check. We ask to perform a check, we take a d100, attempt to roll equal or less than the attribute or skill in question. Alana has attempted to push a heavy stone behind because she suspects there's some hidden pathway behind it. For this, she must test her lesser skills, which has a score of 54. She takes a d100 and rolls 34, which is lower than her skill, a success. And then we've got difficulty modifiers. Some actions may be easier or more difficult depending on the specific circumstances of the situation. On those occasions, difficulty modifiers apply to the check you wish to perform. As is the case with all modifiers, these are applied to the attribute or skill in question for the roles made. So then we've got difficulty, child's play, +30, effortless, easy, normal, demanding, hard, and impossible. In the rare occasions where you feel the need to randomize the difficulty of a check, you can do so by rolling d8 on the difficulty table. Otherwise, just use modifiers specified by the current circumstances. Always keep in mind, the vast majority of actions have a normal difficulty. And then we have opposed checks. When a player is in direct competition with another character, opposed checks takes place to determine who is successful. This usually requires we try to sneak up on an opponent at the beginning of combat. With your character attempting a stealth check while the opponent rolls for awareness, or a side rolls higher than the other without going over their own skill check, wins the opposed check. If there's a tie of any kind, which both parties fail in the checks, for example, the character with the highest relevant score is considered the victor. So yeah, we also have, obviously we'll go over this in detail as we're going through. That's kind of important to note certain things. Advantage and disadvantage. Whatever this means, you have advantage, you roll d100 and read it with the lesser number as the 10s and the greater number as the 1s, if this would favour you. The opposite is true. Disadvantage, only this would hamper you. So Sarah has just received advantage on its attack as a result of a positive defensive move. She rolls a d100 and attains 62. Her skill in bleed weapons is just 50, so that would normally mean it's a failure. However, the advantage allows to flip the result, turning it into a 26 as success. So that's what advantage and disadvantage is. So with advantage, you flip over, I mean it just says there, but yeah, you flip over the result. At disadvantage is the other way around. So that's what we need to remember. Usage die. Usage dies are used to keep track of several things in Ker Nethalas, including having to write down a list of details and timers. You must specifically keep track of a few different dice. Here's how the usage die mechanic typically works. Each usage die procedure, i.e. the tension die described on page 106, is assigned a specific die size, usually represented by a standard die notation, D4, D6, D8, etc. The larger the die size, the longer it will take before it's fully depleted. When the circumstances call for it, you must roll the specific usage. So if the rolls are 1 or 2, the usage die decreases by one size, from D8 to D6, going down the die chain one step. If it's any other number, nothing changes. If the rolls are 1 or 2 on the D4, the smallest possible die in the die chain, then the procedure triggers if something takes place. An event roll is made, you run out of charges on a specific item. Example. Each instance use of the usage die in this book will explain the whole procedure in detail and the consequence of reaching the last step. This is more in terms of coming up to the layer chance to fight an overseer. But this is pretty much how it works. Anything else we want to use? We don't need to go in combat, we don't have to go heal, we don't have to go conditions. I think it's probably best if we go over the exploring Ker Nethalas section next. It's probably best, yeah, before we jump in. Okay, so Ker Nethalas is a vast network of tunnels, rooms, caves, and even buildings buried deep beneath, which is now the city of Eldonia, capital of the Elderworth Kingdom. Unfortunately for you, all known access points have been blocked or fiercely guarded, so your own chance is onwards and downwards, perhaps being lucky enough to find an exit further away from the city above. Ker Nethalas is structured in domains. A domain is a group of rooms and corridors that is ruled by an overseer. These are terrible, brutal creatures that you might need to defeat if you wish to continue your journey, and that affect the domain with their unique power and influence. A domain doesn't necessarily mean a level. Sometimes the transition from one domain to another is a simple hallway, while others it could be a set of stairs heading downwards or a tunnel going up. The Necropolis is a veritable maze, and attempting to understand the logic behind its structure is futile. Some say that Ker Nethalas is cursed by the ancient magic of its builders, making it shift and change as if it were alive, so truly mapping it is an impossible task. Okay, then we go into light source. Ker Nethalas is a dark place. Not only are the natural sources of light extremely rare, the very darkness seems to be alive and spread as a mist, clouding your sight and mind. This is why you must always have a source of light with you. Torches, oil lamps, even spells will do. As long as you're not plunged into the darkness, you'll be fine. You must have a free hand to hold a torch or lamp. Spells, belt lamps, and other items are the only way of getting around this. A regular torch or lamp will remain lit for 20 rooms. You'll use your light source tracker on your character sheet to keep track of this, which is this light source section here. If you lack a source of light, your character will be blinded. They must pass a resolve check every time they enter a new room or lose more sanity. It's very important to remember. And then map domains. In order to explore Ker Nethalas, you're going to need a map. The recommended approach is to build it room by room as you go with the help of the instructions found in this chapter, but you're free to take any pre-existing map and explore it as long as you only take into account its layout and not its contents and encounters. These will be detailed through the rules presented in this book. If you're going to use the map building rules found in this chapter, all you need is a pencil and a sheet of paper. If you want to be precise, you can use graph paper, but that isn't really necessary. Roll on the room and corridor shape table to learn how the room or corridor you're entering looks like. It is done by rolling a D100. A result of 1 to 25 means you encountered a corridor, whereas a 26 to 100 roll is always a room. If you're drawing a domains map, as you should, feel free to rotate this new room or corridor and align it as you see fit. Always making sure to match an entry to the door your character is currently crossing. If the room you just rolled is the domain, not having any potential rooms or corridors to explore, re-roll until you roll a corridor or room that has more than one entry. If you want a description of the room or corridor you entered, roll on the room or corridor description tables. This step is purely for flavor though, and will add nothing but a bit of context and or atmosphere, which we're still going to do anyway because I like story elements. If this is the new room, first room or corridor of a new domain, the first thing you must do is determine who the overseer is, part 165, which modifier it applies to all creatures in the domain. This is done by rolling the overseer influence table on page 87. This roll is done only once at the start of each domain. If you defeat the domain's overseer, all opponents within it lose their impediments. Each time you make a new room, you must take a layer check in order to find where this domain's overseer is. This is done via the usage die rules explained on page 64, which is the starting die being D12. Once you reach the last stage, a roll of a 1 or 2 on a D4, it means you found the domain's overseer. You don't need to engage it if you don't want to, but you can keep on exploring the rest of the domain. Once the overseer's layer has been located, the layer check is no longer necessary. Instead, you'll be making domain exit checks each time you enter a new room or corridor. This is done via the usage die rules, which the starting die being a D8. Once you reach the last stage, means you found the domain's exit point. You can then abandon the domain and move on to the next one, or turn back and finish any unfinished business you might have had in the current one. Finding a domain exit doesn't mean the current domain is complete. You can theoretically keep exploring the same domain indefinitely by generating new rooms. A domain exit behaves as any other normal room or corridor would, so make all the usual checks, tension die, encounter, etc. You're free to move between the different domains in the Necropolis to discover as you want. Once you determine whether it's a regular room or the corridor or the domain's exit, make a tension check as described on page 106, which will like later on down the line. Next, you must see if there's a combat encounter in this room or corridor. Roll a d20. If it's a room, a result of 10 plus means you're encountered some sort of enemy. For corridors, you only face combat encounters on a roll of 15 plus. If the room is an overseer's lair, you must not check for combat encounters. Last but not least, if you enter the room and there's no combat encounter, you must roll on the events table. And then retracing your steps. If for some reason you need or want to go back to an area domain you've already passing through already cleared rooms or corridors, if you do so, you'll still roll an attention die each time you enter a room or corridor, and your light source will be spent as usual, but you do not need to check for combat counters nor roll the events table. So pretty much that's how moving rates. And in terms of our maps, as you can see, we've got some nice corridors here, and then we've got some box standard rooms and stuff. So yeah, so if you're using pen and paper, you know, you can write these, you can draw these explicitly how it sounds, but for me, I can just take screenshots and just put them into Paint 3D. That's the way I do things with these tabletop games. Right, let's finally go into stepping into the darkness. Okay, here we go then. So, your first domain. If this is your first ever playthrough of Ker Nethalas since Midnight Throne, we strongly recommend that you use the following starting domain of the Necropolis to ease yourself into it. Give it fairly a true hardcore start, keep in mind you have no weapons, supplies, or gear of any kind. You can ignore this and jump straight into the dungeon exploration procedures explained in chapter 4. During this fourth domain, the map is already generated for you. Some details are fixed, but you will still need to generate the content and possible counters of each route using procedures from chapter 4. The only thing to keep in mind is that the starting level does not use the standard combat encounter tables from page 119, but this one is presented here. The table is to be used exclusively during your time spent on the first domain of Ker Nethalas. Once you step out of it, you must use the standard combat encounters tables. There's no need to keep track of the domain exits, it's already shown on the map, but remember to make a tension die check every time you enter a room. Okay, so basically here is our map. So we start at 1, and then 2, then we make our way to 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and then 7. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do this. Okay, so I've put in the map, and I put a wee token in just to show us where we are in Paint 3D. This is Victor, as you can see, Victor Line Shard. Basically Cleric Rogue. Cleric Ranger. Just going off the Mastery descriptions. So anyway, so basically there he is. So we're going to keep track of that. So let's have a look at the first chapter. So, right, so here we go. So during this first domain, all doors are marked to the map, so there's no need to check every room or corridor to see if you use doors lots or not. We strongly recommend you explore every single nook and cranny of the domain before deciding to face the Odyssey to move on to a different domain. Okay then, right, so obviously we have a combat encounter, Blight Fang Rats, Skeletal Horrors or Flesh Eaters. Okay, let's have a look. So, Corpse Pile. This is where you opened your eyes for the first time after your supposed nightmare execution. This is where the nightmare begins. There is nothing of value here, just a rotten flesh and vermin. You do find a half-spent torch though. It will last you another 10 rooms. So, with this, what we need to do is we need to go over to our PDF. And, can I just check that? Yep. And then what we need to do is we need to mark 10 rooms. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we've got 10 of these. So we got 10 rooms, and then let's go down to our backpack gear. I think it's classic gear, right? Going off the thing. So maybe check something. Curse oppression. No, that's not it. That. Where do I find the spells and loot? Is it here? Okay, so torch. Okay, so we're gonna put torch. Well, basically it says that we need an empty hand, so I think on our offhand we'll put torch here. There we go. So far we have a torch. Okay. So for that, alright, let's go back to Ker Nethalas. Okay. So then from here, we move to the guard room. So we move to number 2 then. So, we go forward into number 2. So as you can see, there's a path down that way, path forward, path that way, path that way. So because we've entered a new room, we need to go back to our light source, and we need to mark off 1. So we have 9 left. Right, let's read it. The guard room. This room appears to be some ancient guard room. A tattered banner still hanging from one of the walls. Several armour and weapon racks lie collapsed and rotting near the walls. But among the many rusty pieces of weaponry, find something you can use. So we get a dagger, a club, a pilum, and we get to roll once on the random armour table. There is no combat counter event in this room. Okay, so we want to go back to our stuff here. So we get a dagger, a pilum. So here. I think torch goes in here, right? I think so. The torch goes here, so. The torch is currently equipped to our offhand. Right. We're currently expert in blade weapons. So I think if we go to the weapon table here, a dagger is a bladed weapon with a pierce. We also have the quick ability as well. So quick ability gives us a +10 to initiation check. So I wonder if we should put the dagger in our main hand for now. So I think we will do that. So we're gonna add dagger, skill, quick, and then it's piercing damage. So it's piercing damage, and then +10 to int. Or checks. There we go. Now, we also do have a club and a pilum. So we'll put that in the backpack. So we're going to go club, pilum. There we go. So we got club and pilum. In our main hand's the dagger. As you can see. And then, what else did it say? Beginnings. Roll once on the armor, on the random armor table. Okay then. So let's go to armor and protective gear. On the random armor table. What is the random armor table? I didn't see the random armor table. Full suits. Common gear. Losing spoils. Random armor. Okay, let me find it. Let me see if we can find it. Weapons. table. Oh, here we go. Random master. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, let's randomize masteries. Huh, didn't realize. Okay, resources. Random armor table. Okay. So on a 1 and a 2, we get full suit. 3 to 7 is torso. 8 to 12 is van braces. 13 to 17 is greed. 18. Right. So let's see what we get. So let's go to our roller. Let's go D20. Is it a D20 for it? So let me double check. There's a D20 for the random armor. Let's have a look. 1 or 2. Come on. 5. Okay, 5. We get a torso armor. That's not too bad. Okay, so what we do is we find the piecemeal set. If we can find it. Piecemeal. Armor. Okay then. Or... Now, the question is, do we randomize it? Let me just go back to the random armor section. Oh, right, yeah, okay, hold on. Full suit and torso, right. I didn't realize the other tables there. Okay, that's fine. So, let's do a D100. Tells what we got. Tell you one thing, we can get plate, even magic armor, that'd be pretty nice. We'll see. So this is a torso. So D100. Buddy, a D100. Oh my god, and I got that recorded. Beautiful. Okay, right, so magic armor. Oh my god, okay, so magic armor. So what do we do for the magic armor? That was a good question. Right, so we need to roll. Yeah, okay, so we got the magic armor. Magic armor properties. Okay, armor. Rolling the random page 2 of 5, which we just did. So yeah, so we got magic armor. See, I never got magic armor before. There's magic armors. Okay, so I guess we roll a d20 to determine... Yeah, I guess we roll a d20 to determine the properties. Okay, so give me a second here. So we got magic torso. Torso, integrity. Right, so we got mass. Okay, so we got magic torso. Magic torso. Protection and integrity. This is what I'm confused about. So do we have to re-roll for... Let me have a look. Integrity. I think maybe I need to re-roll again. I never got a magic armor before. I'm just really confused about this. Maybe I do need to re-roll it again. Damage time, magic resistance based on the armor's rarity. Yeah, I think I have to re-roll again. I think that's what it is. Maybe I need to again. Yeah, I think for this ruling I'm gonna roll again. I think 29. Okay, so 29 is okay. So we've got magic hide scale. Right, so we've got magic hide scale. Magic high scale torso armor. Right, and then before we do anything else, let's randomize the properties. So let's do a d20. 2. Okay, let's have a look. Roll on the damage table, type table. So armor grants you damage based on the armor's rarity. +1, +2, +3. Oh. Oh, item rarity. Okay, so I suppose we roll the item rarity then, I suppose? Right, well, let's do a d20 then to determine what our resistance is. d20 3. So we are resistant to arcane, alright. And then we'll roll a d10 to determine what our rarity is. 9. Oh my god, that's a +3. So we've got a +3 reduction. That's your damage reduction based on the using type. Water damage. Sorry, arcane. so we have arcane damage. So it's a reduction. Oh, right, so it's a right, I think I understand. So it's a -3 arcane reduction? Is that right? Yeah, I guess it's a -3 then. I think that's how it's worked. That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so we rolled again. We've got high scale. So now, with our high scale, we need to do the integrity and stuff now, right? I think so. It has been a long time since I've last done any of this. Okay, so in high scale, so we got 2 protection. So, 2 protection. Oh no, that's integrity. So 2 protection. And integrity is a D8. So let's do a quick D8. 4. Okay, so we got 4 integrity. Okay. So that's 4 and 4. Perfect. Okay then, right. So that's that for that, I believe. Yeah? I think so. Okay, so the guard room. Right, so then from here we move into section number 3 now, which is here. So now that we have our equipment, down the stairs, and here we are. Okay. So, another unfortunate soul. It is clear you're not the first one here. Others come before you. In front of you lies the relatively recent corpse of another one of those unfortunate souls. A quick check reveals they have 2 times cooking supplies and 10 times crafting supplies in them. The misfortune might be what ends up saving your life. There's no event in this room, even if there's any enemies. Okay, no problem. So let's go to our thing. And what was it? 2 times cooking supplies. 2 cooking supplies and 10 crafting, right? That's correct. Okay, so now we go down to number 4 now. So from here we go. Shit, I just realized something. So because we entered a new room, I forgot. No, wrong window. We need to replace this light here. There we go. And then going back into this room, which is classed as a brand new room. We need to take off another torchlight. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 torches left. And then going into the altar bit. Go 1. Straight to room number 4. To which we need to lower this. Perfect. Okay, altar. Old melted candles are fused into a mass of solid wax upon an altar dedicated to some mysterious goddess you do not recognize. She holds a bowl in her hands, and within it you find the brittle remains of paper prayers left there by whoever worshipped the deity. There's no event in this room, but you can find D4 candles you can still use. Right, okay, so one thing I forgot to do in between, you know, two different clips is I was supposed to be rolling for random encounters. Yeah, so remember the D20 on a 15 or above, that's when you get a fight. At least I think that's what it says anyway. Let me just double check that. Okay, so next you must see there's a common encounter in this room or corridor. Room D20, if it's room, it's 10 plus, meaning you encounter some sort of enemy. For encounters you want to face the combat of a roll of 15 plus. Okay, so basically with every room starting forward, even though the for some reason this section doesn't necessarily say, I mean, we have a combat table here anyway, but I think we are supposed to be rolling. So I'm going to say that we came into here and we do have ourselves an encounter just to showcase the battles, see what we're going to do before we face the Overseer. So Also from here, combat encounters first domain, roll a d20 to see if we get blight fang rats, skeletal horrors, or flesh eaters. So let's do that now. So let's see what we're facing. So we're going to face a d20. We're facing, get it up, blight fang rats. Okay, so now we need to find them. Blight fang rats. Here they are. Okay, so blight fang rats. These abominable rodents are grotesque amalgamations of rotting flesh and shadows. The sinewy bodies coated in mangy, rotted fur, possessing malevolent crimson eyes that pierce the very soul. Blightfang rats can really spread havoc quickly if left unchecked. Whispers speak of these nightmarish creatures amassing beneath Eldonia, ready to unleash an apocalyptic wave of suffering upon the world. Okay, so in terms of its stat block, its animal type is free, awareness 60, endurance 30, athletics 5, free health. Hit location, quadrupled head, combat skill 30, magic 20, spoils resource table, trait pack, and it has, so what's really cool about the enemies in Ker Nethalas is that, compared to something like Dungeons & Dragons where you have the stat block and it has its abilities and attacks where you choose what attack it does, you roll a d6 to determine what attack it's going to do. So basically, it's really good because we got bite attacks that deals d6 piercing damage, or it could scratch, dealing d4 slashing damage, or it could rally, increasing all damage dealt by 1, which is really deadly. So in terms of this, yeah, I'm gonna get battle self. I'll see in a second. So I did kind of a quick little battlefield simulation thing. So we have here we have the blight fang rats. It's gonna take me a while to get used to the names of these monsters here. I took a screenshot of the first page of Victor's character sheet, as well as the stat block of the rats as well. Now, before we initiate into combat, I think it's pretty much important if we go over how combat works. Now, also as well, I have, so I've also downloaded a quick little player guide aid on how like each room operates. I'm going to be more referring to this later on down the line, and I got this from another YouTuber by the name of Load Adventurer. This is where I got my influence to play to get Ker Nethalas, by the way, and he had this as part of a link in his description. So I'll put a link to his channel down below. So basically, it's just that. But again, this is just for myself, really, just to keep track of. But before that, I think it's best if we go over combat now. So where is combat? Good question. Combat encounters? Yeah, I think it's probably best if we do that. Let me just zoom in just a little bit more. I've actually forgot what the thing was. Okay, perfect. Okay, sooner or later, you're going to have to face some abomination or strange creature trying to make you their next meal, or simply wants to kill you, because that's all they were created to do. When you come across such a combat encounter, refer to the rules presented in this chapter to understand what you're facing, how they act, and how any other necessary details. So, opponent type. All opponents are classified by their type: animal, astral, plant, demon, elemental, undead, humanoid, construct. While most have a single type, some of them can be a combination of two, such as elemental construct or undead plant. As you level up, the enemies you face will become tougher and more resourceful. Your character's level, L, directly influence the enemy's stats. Each stat block found in this chapter has an entry called level adaptation. When you prepare to face a combat encounter, you must apply all the changes listed there in order to scale the creature to your current level. Most creatures will just see their health and combat skill increase, but some will gain new traits as your hero increases. Example, Heracos. A level 3 character is about to face an abyssal Vexator. Heracos' player takes a look at the level adaptation section of the Vexator stat block, and learn that for each level, Heracos has the creature gain +1 health. The creature becomes nastier after level 5, but since Heracos is a level 3 character, that means that the demon only gains +3 health for a total of 11. All the adjustments to a creature stat block are cumulative, so if you encounter a level 11 opponent, you must apply all the changes listed, that is both the level 5 and level 10 adjustments. Multiple targets. When an opponent is faced with a decision of who to attack, Due to the fact you're accompanied by friends or minions trying to evenly distribute the numbers of opponents among your party members, randomize it in case of doubt. Character stat block. Each of the creatures described in this chapter has a series of characteristics in common. The same way your character's details or summoner skills and masteries, the opponents you face have different values in the following categories. The collection of these categories of their values is known as a stat block. Athletics. This is used when your abilities require an opposed check against the target's physical prowess. Awareness. All creatures Ker Nethalas have some way of seeing and detecting dangers around them. Awareness is mostly used to determine who starts first in combat. Combat skill. This is the number you must use when the creature attacks or defends. Endurance. This defines a creature's ability to resist the outcome of substances and effects that imply a direct attack to their constitution. Health. The amount of damage a creature can take before dying or being destroyed. Hit location. This shows where one of the hit location tables shown on page 69 you must use when a target is creature. This also marks the creature's weak spot with a little heart icon. Level adaptation. This section lists the changes you must make to the creature's stat block in order to adapt it to your current level. Magic resistance. When you attack a creature with a magic ability, they can usually attempt to resist it by passing a magical resistance check. Number. Some opponents will come in numbers. When this is the case, track each one of their health, attacks, and other details separately. Spoils. This lets you know which table you must roll on in order to find out if the creature had anything of value. Some creatures will tell you what you gain after looting them instead of directing you towards one of the spoil tables. Trait. Some creatures possess unique traits and can aid them during combat. Type. An opponent's type determines what category or family of creatures they belong to. Creature trait. Alert. This creature cannot be surprised in any way. Frightening. A frightening creature requires a successful resolve check at the start of each of your turns, for as long as the creature remains alive or in your same room. Failure causes the loss of 1 sanity. Only 1 check per round is necessary, regardless how many frightening creatures there are in the room. Horrifying. A horrified creature requires a successful resolve check at the start of each of your turns, for as long as the creature remains alive or in the same room. Failure causes the loss of 2 sanity. Only 1 check per round is necessary regardless how many horrified creatures are in the room. Pack. The creature receives a +5 combat skill for each other pack creature still alive in the room. Penetrating. This creature's attacks ignore an amount of value points equal to the X value. Ruthlessness. That is an overseer only trait that grants them a number of equal standard actions per round equal to the X value. Savage. Savage? This is an overseer only trait. Characters cannot parry, i.e. use their weapon skill. The overseer's attacks, they can only use their dodge skill to avoid them. Swift. This creature ignores all reaction negative modifiers. Undead. A creature with this trait is immune to charm, poison, and disease, restored by necrotic damage and vulnerable to holy damage. Venomous. When damaged by this creature, you must pass an endurance check or receive the poison 1 condition. So yeah, so we got a list of different tables here, and we have our monsters and such, but I don't see how you attack and stuff. Combat in Ker Nethalas into Midnight Throne is relatively abstracted. Instead of tracking you and your opponent's positions, it is simply assumed that you're both moving around the room, leveraging your positional advantages and preferences as you can. This is why concepts such as range and cover don't really play a role here. Combat will alternate between you and your opponent or opponents, taking turns until only one is left. The attack roll. Performing an attack works the same as any other skill check. Roll a d100 and compare the result to the relative combat skill, and if it is equal to or less than the skill score, the attack is successful. Turns and rounds. To understand combat, you must know the difference between a turn and a round. A turn is a single combatant's chance to act, while a round is the sum of all combatants' turns, both player and non-player characters, where all combatants are taking 1 turn, and that round ends and never begins. A combat round lasts an average of 10 seconds. Action types. Characters can make 3 different types of actions in combat. Free actions. Cost nothing to use, are typically small, almost inconsequential acts. Speaking a few words, dropping an item, dropping prone, casting a free ability, or seizing the concentration of a sustained ability are all examples of free actions. You can only make a single free action per round. Reactions. Reactions are free actions that a character can make as a response to another character's action, and as such they usually require a trigger. A character can use as many reactions in a round as they need, but each reaction after the first one suffers a cumulative -20 to all consecutive reactions they make until the start of the next round. Defending from opponent's attack is the most typical reaction, but many abilities are considered reactions as well. Standard actions are the core of a combat round. They're self-contained and the results are seen in the same turn. Unless they possess some item or ability, PCs have 1 standard action per round. Certain abilities and spells need 2 or more standard actions to be completed, unless the character in turn can perform more than the regular 1 standard action per round. This means they'll be more forced to spend 2 or more rounds to complete an action. Wherever this is the case, the character in question cannot do anything but concentrate on the action, and suffer a -30 to all defensive maneuvers they initiate. Initiate, that's it. Initiative and surprise. When you're faced with an opponent and combat is clearly taking place, you must determine who gets to strike first. This is done by pitching your perception versus your target's awareness in an opposed check known as the initiative check. Whoever wins gets to act first until combat's over. If either side rolls a critical failure, their opponent's attacks if they have surprised them, as explained below. Alternatively, and only if your opponents haven't surprised you, something that always be stated explicitly, you can attempt to surprise before combat starts. This is done by comparing your stealth against your opponent's awareness in the opposed check. In case there are several opponents with different awareness scores, simply use the highest among them. The same goes for your side but reversed. If you're playing with multiple PCs, only use the lowest stealth score among them. In case you are a single player accompanied by followers of all sorts, your stealth skills are reduced by 10 for each follower. If you win the check, your initiative is yours, and you get to make the first attack with +20. If you fail, a proper initiation check must be made to determine who goes first, but your perception skill receives a -10 modifier. In Destiny and Necropolis, it doesn't really matter how fast you are and how sharp your reflexes are. If you're caught unaware, your death will arrive sooner than you expected. So possible combat actions: standard attack, perform an attack with your weapons or target in the same room. This is standard action. Abilities: you use one of your mastery abilities. Not all abilities exist standard actions, though read each of their descriptions to learn more. Flee. When things are looking good, you want to disengage from combat and retreat to a previous room, you must make a successful dodge check. If you fail it, it means that your opponent is blocking you and you cannot leave combat as a standard action. Other. You can use any item you have on your person, interact with something, assist an ally, or swap weapons. They're all standard actions, unless you're using an item from your belt, in this case it's a free action. Combat. Once the order action has been established, it's time to start the fight itself. The attacking character makes a standard skill check, roll D100, compare the result to the combat skill check they're using. The attacking character has the lead and such receives a +10 to their attack skill. Simultaneously, the defender also makes a combat skill check. If it is a player, it will be skill relative to the currently equipped weapon or their dodge skill. If it's an NPC, they must use their combat skill. Any type of parry bonus the defending character must have, such as grants a shield applies to his roll. When we compare both rolls, while the attacker roll highest, they're still rolling below their skill score, they score a hit. If, on the other hand, a defender who rolled highest while still rolling below their skill or rolling on contested critical, they get to roll on the defensive move table. If one side fails the attack roll and their opponent doesn't, then the successful side manages to attack or defend depending on whose turn it is. And then you can roll on defensive move. Next attack receives +10, reduce your opponent's arm by 1 at one random location at the end of the turn, and the combat side. Opponent receives bleeding. If you're prone, paralyzed, done similar condition, you automatically recover, otherwise your next attack receives a +10. Your opponent suffers D4 damage that ignores armor, and this attack deals in, and so and so forth. Consecutive defensive rolls in the same round, either with the appropriate attack skill or dodge skill, requires the skill, reduce the skill by -20 after the first one. This is just usual for reactions. This resets at the start of a new round and only affects reaction skill checks. A critical strike automatically wins the confrontation regardless of the opponent's roll. A critical fumble automatically loses the confrontation regardless of the opponent's roll. So a critical strike is a 1 and a critical failure is 100. This is a standard flow of combat, but there's a couple of exceptions. Most enemy attacks can be defended against with a standard weapon check described above, but some can only be avoided with a dodge skill, such as the overseer's attacks. If this is the case, this is always explicitly say on the creature's description. Enemies can attack physically, in which case the combat is resolved as described above, or magically, in which case the players must pass a magic resistance check, or suffer the spell's effects. As of the case with PC's magic abilities, opponents do not need to make a skill check of any sort. The ability just manifests. Each one's the monster's abilities is always tagged as physical or magical. When it's the opponent's turn, you must roll on their action table to see if their attack is a physical or magical one, and then resolve it accordingly. Weapon speed. Every weapon in Ker Nethalas has a speed value. This represents the weapon's overall maneuverability, so wielding a weapon with high speed can end up what gives you the edge against a tough opponent. A weapon speed is always added to your combat skill checks. Hit, location, and damage. Once it's clear that you have managed to hit your target, you must determine the consequences of your attack. For this, you must roll on the appropriate hit locations table, depending on the target's anatomy. Every creature you encounter will have a weak spot marked by a dat symbol next to the body part in question. Striking a creature's weak spot is considered an automatic critical hit. As a human, your critical spot is located in your head. You can choose to target a specific body part by applying a -30 modifier to the attack roll. This has two potential uses, either targeting the creature's weak spot to ensure a critical hit, or disabling a limb which reduces the target skill by 10 until end of combat. A disabling attack deals no damage and must always be declared before rolling. Accidentally striking a limb when not targeting it doesn't disable it. And then here we have the hit locations. So we have arachnid, insectoid, quadruple wing, and stuff. And then dealing damage. If the attack manages to hit, the attacker rolls damage and compares each die to the damage table. So we get... This is the one thing I was always confused with. So die roll is 1. Okay, so we got 1 is 0, 2 to 4 is 1, 5 to 7 is 2, 8 to 9 is 3. Okay. The damage dealt column shows the amount of tough healthness subtracted by the creature suffering the damage, unless there were some sort of armor scrape below. There's a few points to remember. Any ability, spell, or item that increases damage by a fixed amount plus 2 plus 4 increases the damage die roll, not the amount of damage that the target receives directly. After rolling, any damage modifiers are applied to the lowest die roll, but only to a single die. All non-magical weapons deal d6 damage. Any type of damage, be it physical damage, a spell, or trap, must be rolled on the damage dealt type. Damage type, not all damage are equal. Some characters, creatures, or items may be susceptible to one type of damage or immune to another. These types of damage exist in Ker Nethalas, that's air, acid caused by certain plants, creatures, air, arcane, bludgeoning, cold, earth, fire, holy, infernal, necrotic, piercing, poison, psychic, slashing, and water damage. All creatures in Ker Nethalas can be vulnerable, damage received is double, resistant, halved, immune, fully ignored, or restored, recovering amounts of wounds equal to damage received by certain damage type. For example, undead creatures are vulnerable to holy but are restored by necrotic damage. When a creature is vulnerable or resistant, only direct damage taken into account after armor has been applied. For example, Okan has managed to strike an undead creature with a holy spell that deals d6 plus 1 damage. He rolls a 4, which turns into a 5 thanks to plus 1 modifier, resulting in 2 damage. The creature has 1 armor, reducing the damage to 1. Since the undead creature is vulnerable to holy damage, the damage received is double, which means it receives 2 holy damage instead. Your character also has some sort of damage reduction to certain types of damage, mostly thanks to gears or spells. When it's the case, reduce the incoming damage after armor has been taken into account. Any damage that persists after combat, such as bleeding, burning, and poison damage, deals 1 direct damage per room, no rolling on the damage dealt table. Armor. Most creatures will have some sort of armor, at least one of their body parts. This amount of armor shown determines how much incoming damage is absorbed. Unaffecting the creature or player, armor value is deducted only after all the damage rolls have been tallied up, as they are applying to each damage roll individually. So for example, has managed to score hits against a terrible amalgam. The strike hits the amalgam on the arm, but unfortunately for Arn, the creature has 3 armor on that location. Arn deals 3d6 plus 1 damage and rolls a 4, 3, and a 5. Since the lowest damage roll is the 3, Arn applies the plus 1 modifier to it, resulting in another 4. He then tallies up the damage. 1 damage for each 4 rolled plus 2 damage for the 5 is a total of 4 damage. Since the amalgam is 3, Arn only managed to deal 1 damage against it. Armor is only taken into account when combat. Damage from traps or other external factors is not absorbed by armor. All armor has an integrity value, represented by a die. After a fight, where the armor worn by the character has been seen in use, the integrity die must be rolled. A roll of 1 or 2 means that the die goes down the dice chain by 1 stage. A result of 1 or 2 in the last stage, d4, means that the armor is beyond repair and cannot be discarded. It must be discarded. Repairing armor increases integrity by 1 die type in the die chain. No armor can ever go higher than its initial integrity though, and not all armor has the same maximum integrity. Check each of the descriptions to learn more. Any armor or shield found in this loot has a starting integrity 1 stage lower than its maximum. Something to remember? Combat critical hits and fumbles. In combat where a character rolls doubles below their combat skill, this is a brutal strike and can only be defended against if the defender rolls against a critical hit. A defensive roll is not a critical hit, the attacker wins regardless of anything else. Combat critical hits have their damage doubled. This means if you would usually roll d6 for your damage, while you retain a critical hit, you must roll 2d6 instead. Any modifiers to your roll are also doubled. On the other hand, rolling fumbling during combat will make things tougher for you. Roll on the fumbles table, see what happens. So we got things to remember. A character can dual wield 2 one-handed weapons to gain a free parry reaction per round and deal a +2 damage, but their attack skill is reduced by 30. Shields. Add a modifier to any defensive checks done by the character wielding it. An unarmed character deals D4 damage. Characters or creatures attacking a prone target has a +30 to attack skill. Attacking an unconscious or sleeping target requires no skill check. When you're about to receive a critical strike, you can choose to sacrifice either your weapon or shield to negate it, turning it into a regular strike. This absorbs all damage, but the weapon or shield in question is broken and cannot be used against to again to repair. So combat example, Ephros has suddenly encountered a terrible Necropede, and it looks like there's no way of getting around it. Ephros decides he's going to attempt an ambush to the creature and makes a stealth check, versus the Necropede's awareness of 40. Ephros' stealth is 56 and he rolls a 34 while the Necropede rolls 78. Since Ephros won the check, he manages to surprise the creature and wins the initiative. So these are the different fumbles that we have. You drop your weapon, you roll your weapon strength. We'll go over this later. The first round of combat starts with Ephros attacking the Necropede. He is attacking with a dagger, and his skill with blade weapons is 73. Since he is the one initiative, he receives a +10 to his attack skill, as well as a +20 because of surprising his opponent for a total of 103. The Necropede's combat skill is 60. Both Ephros and Necropede roll, with Ephros attaining a 12 success against his opponent's 45, also a success. Since both combatants have succeeded, but the Necrovoid's roll is higher than Ephros, the Necropede wins and gets to roll on the defensive mood table. Unfortunately for Ephros, the roll is not as bad as it could have been. 4, which means that Necropede's next attack is +10. It is now the creature's turn to attack. First, Ephros player rolls on the Necropede's combat attack table to learn what a creature does, resulting in a spiral whip attack that deals D8 bludgeoning damage. There is a physical attack, so combat proceeds as usual. Necropede rolls 45, which is a win against Ephros' 89. Next, Ephros rolls to see where the creature strikes him, and it seems to hit him on his left arm. He rolls Necropede's damage and compares the D8 roll a 6 to the damage dealt table, resulting in 2 damage. Ephros has 1 armour on that body part, but since the Necropede's attack deals bludgeoning damage, it ignores 1 armour, which means that Ephros receives the full 2 damage. That's going to be a tough fight. And then the next section is like healing and other stages and stuff like that, but we'll go over that as we go in. I just wanted to get the basics of combat done first.